Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As was discussed in the previous videos, the work of the Tablighi Jamaat is global in nature. It is inclusive. It includes all people from all nations, nationalities, races, all parts of the world, all people of all parts of the world are involved in this effort. And this makes it different from other revival movements, which are generally national or regional. Uh, the Tablighi Jamaat contribution in this regard is phenomenal. The division in the Ummah, which has caused so much hardship, is can only be remedied, can only be stopped by the effort of this work, by people getting involved. Politically, nations are divided. The Muslims are divided into so many different countries. But through this effort, they come together, and this can be seen from the large ijtimas, large gatherings, in which one can see people from all nations coming under the common purpose, the common goal of bringing the deen back into their lives. So this is a revival movement which should be encouraged by all Muslims who are concerned about the division in the Ummah. Sometimes we see scholars, intellectuals, preachers of Islam making speeches and writing books that are very divisive in nature. In this work, what is being taught, what is being preached is the respect, the honor of Muslim. No matter how sinful a Muslim is, if he has even an iota of iman in his heart, he's still worthy of respect. So the way they are taught, the way the Jamaats are taught, is to look upon Muslims, people with iman, with respect, and also consider them better because they may be having some qualities that the others may not be aware of. So it's like a diamond in a gutter. You see, a diamond is still a diamond, but because it's in the gutter, it can be taken out, it can be cleaned, and it can be polished. So this is the attitude of the Tablighi Jamaat, that no matter how sinful a person is, he has to be looked at with respect, with honor. And that's why when the Jamaats go to different people, they don't look for their faults, they look at the good things about them. And the attitude is that if a person is old, then one should think he has better, more ibadah to his credit. And if he's younger than the person, then one should see, or he should see that the person may have committed lesser sins. So in either case, the person is deserving of respect. And of course, the greatest effort of deen was made by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who went to people of all types. He did not go only to the righteous people. He went to people who were the worst of the worst. And he had patience. He had humility. And this is very important in this tabligh work, that a person who's giving dawah, who's inviting others to Islam, should have the humility, not the arrogance. If the person has arrogance in his heart, that he is better than the person he's talking to, then that will not affect the heart of the person. So the person's humility, this is the characteristic, this is the quality of the prophets. They went to people who were very sinful, who were very oppressive, but they treated them with love and affection because they knew what the life is going to be like after death. They felt sorry for them, they felt pity for them. They did not envy them. This is something that is something in the heart. So one of the goals of this work is to treat the diseases of the heart like pride, greed, hatred, envy. These are all diseases of the heart which divide people, which bring destruction to societies. If we look at the cause of corruption, it is what? It's a result of greed, result of jealousy. These are things that destroy the human society. So what Islam does, it goes to the teachings that affect the heart. The prophets came to affect the hearts of the people. You see, to make human beings into human beings. If human beings are not trained, not taught to be human beings, they can be very dangerous, more dangerous than the animals. The animals can cause harm, but not as much harm as the human being, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this human being a mind which is capable of doing great harm if it's not properly channelized. So the human being has that potential, and this is what we see in the society, in the world today. The human being has made tremendous advancement as far as science is concerned. They've been going in, they've reached very high heights in matters of material advancement. But that material advancement has not enhanced the quality of the human being. Some of the worst destruction that took place in human history was in the last century, the two big wars. And close to 100 million people were killed in that. And that's more than all the wars in human history. And this came about as a result of great advancement in science. So science can make people very highly advanced, but if they are not human beings, properly guided, then they can become more destructive than any other creation. So the work of Anbiya was to work on the human being. The work of scientists is to work on the material, on the machines, on the matter, on the material side. And little thought is given to this, that when so much power is in the hands of people who are not properly guided, they can bring a lot of misery to mankind. And we see that with our own eyes now, that there is no shortage of resources. There's no shortage of things. This earth is capable of feeding many, many billions of people. But why there is so much poverty in this world? Why is there so much conflict in the world? Why there's so many wars, people killing each other? Why is that? It's because the human being has not been trained, has not been taught to be a human being. And only Islam has the complete manual to make a human being into a human being. As was said in the previous videos, the other religions have been so changed, so altered, and they are not as extensive as the teachings of Islam. The teachings of Islam are so broad and so extensive because this is the final religion, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed it and made it for all mankind for all times to come. Because this is a complete way of life, it has to be studied. And not only studied, it has to be put into practice. And the tragedy is that the people who were given the task to put this into practice have themselves abandoned this. And we know from the history of Pakistan that the Pakistanis have not abandoned the British ways until this day. They're so much overawed by the British thinking that they do not even consider that there is another way to live a life. All the institutions, all the schools, colleges, universities, till this day, are still doing what the British were doing 100 years ago. And these people who are putting these policies into effect have been taught by their elders, their predecessors, who were taught by their predecessors, and who were taught by the British. So this system is just perpetuating, it's just going on and on and on. And the educated class of Pakistan, the intellectuals, they're completely, this is of course a general statement, this doesn't apply to every single person, there are exceptions. But the people who are making decisions at high levels have no idea what blessings Islam brought to the world. You can tell from their talks, you can tell from their attitudes, how they look down upon the Islamic practices. They've been indoctrinated to the extent that they think Islam is going to take them to the Dark Ages. This is the effect of the British education. They worked so hard on the minds of the people they had colonized that they made them think that the only way to make progress in the world is through the British way. And there was progress in the scientific sense. There is no question about that. But the fact is that the human being is not just a machine. A human being is not a robot. A human being has to be guided like a human being. And this is something that the British were not aware of, because their scriptures and their moral teachings are not so extensive as the thinking and the teachings of Islam. And they taught what they knew. The only thing they knew was material advancement. And that's what they taught. And the people, the Muslims who were conquered by them, were completely changed. They were so overawed, so impressed by the achievements of the British, that they took everything without questioning, forgetting that this kind of knowledge will give them advancement in science and technology, but it will take them away from being a human being. And the results are before everybody. Just imagine the British Empire, how much misery it caused to the people all over the world, and how they enriched themselves at the expense of the colonies, how this little island became the richest part of the world, and how they completely impoverished the populations that they conquered. If you compare that history with the history of the Sahaba, wherever they went, they made those countries very rich and powerful. They did not loot those countries and bring the wealth to Mecca and Medina and made them into a big empire. Wherever they went, they established institutions over there and brought humanity to those people. And we know from the history of Islam that the great empires were made not in Mecca and Medina, they were made far, far away from Mecca and Medina. Because these people had not gone with that intention to bring the wealth of their colonies and make the center of Islam the richest part of the world. So this is a big change, this is a big difference between the spread of Islam and the spread of the colonial powers. Wherever Britain went, wherever the French or the Germans and the Americans now, and the Russians, wherever they've gone with the intention to control the resources of those nations, to use them for their purpose. But the purpose of Islam is actually to guide humanity. Is to guide humanity to the right path. The Sahaba did not go to other parts of the world to become rich at their expense. As we know, the incident where the Sahabi went to Persia and the Persian king asked, "Why have you come?" And his famous statement that we have not come, we have been sent to liberate you from the slavery of the creation and bring you to the slavery of the Creator. So this was the attitude. They did not go there with the intention of becoming rich at the expense of the others. In other words, not like parasites. Whereas the other conquerors like Alexander and Genghis Khan and the other conquerors of the world, wherever they went, they destroyed the populations and they controlled them with force, with oppression. This is something that the Muslims are not aware of because they've been taught history from the masters, from the countries that colonized them. And unfortunately, the Muslims who were educated by these colonizers, by these great powers, were taught those lessons. And they are teaching the same lessons to the next generation, to the people who are not aware of that. And this is very important for the educators to go back to history and see how the Islamic empire started and what their attitude was and how they brought peace and prosperity to the countries, and compare that with the record of the countries that colonized them. India was the richest country of the world before the British came. And when the British left, it became one of the poorest countries of the world. And this is something that is known by historians, that the British came to India for trade, for business. And they ended up becoming a world power. So this is something which a lot of Muslims students do not know. They accepted whatever teachings were brought without question. And the rulers in these countries, unfortunately, were trained, educated in that thinking. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not change the condition of the people until they change their thinking. Because thinking affects the actions. If the thinking is wrong, then the actions will be wrong. And when the actions are wrong, then that will bring destruction. So there's a lot of need for education in these institutions that are now free. It's up to the people, up to the Muslims to re-educate themselves, go back to the teachings of the Quran and the Hadith, and see the vast resources, the treasures that are hidden. These are the treasures which have been forgotten. They're buried in the ground, and they have to be dug out, and they have to be used. And this is a big monumental task. The Ummah has to make this effort. Otherwise, they will go on suffering as they have been suffering for over 70 years. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to learn the deen and to practice it. Wa akhir da'wana in alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.